Welcome. It's good to see you, Ms. Walker. Thanks for being here today.
Red light is on. Dr. Casey. We are kicking off an update to the Bikeways and Trails Plan. So that's what I'm here to give you an overview on. And shout out to planning for being here. Transportation and planning are the mega users of the plan, so thank you for being here this afternoon as well. So our plan. This is our Bikeways and Trails Plan. It's Chapter 14 of our comprehensive plan. The board adopted it November of 2015, so it's been in action almost 9 years. The plan proposes over 360 miles of bike facilities in the county. Quick reference, on-road is blue, off-road is green. We've got some regional routes on there. East Coast Greenway route, US Bike Route 1 is noted in the plan as well. And the 4 goals of the plan are to create a network of safe and convenient bike routes throughout the county, support connections between live, work, play, and public facilities, promote healthy lifestyles and tourism by linking communities up to historic, cultural, and natural areas throughout the county, and then provide some guidance on the general location and design of the facility. So those are the goals of the plan. So establishing a definition of terms, at least as it relates to the plan, what's in the plan, what's not in the plan. So sidewalks are not a focus of the plan. It's focused on making bike connections. Sidewalks are a base condition, if you will, that's built into. We have a policy, we have ordinance. We deliver sidewalks through residential, non-residential developments. We do standalone public projects. So it's not a sidewalk plan. I'm distinguishing recreational trails, as it's not a focus of the Bikeways and Trails Plan, defined as unpaved trails or loop trails that are internal to a park or internal to a residential subdivision. Those tend to be more recreational focused in that, they're not as linear A to B types of trips. So the plan will not highlight or speak to these types of more recreational focused trails. And so again, you've got an unpaved trail on the bottom left, and then you've got, as an example, an internal to Chesden Landing is the photo on the right. But the plan does speak to shared use paths, multi-use trails. Those terms are used interchangeably often. Both are paved pathways that separate vehicular traffic from bikers. They also accommodate not just bikes, but pedestrians and other non-motorized travelers. And it's designed to accommodate travel in 2 directions. So the photo on the left is an example of a shared use path along the road, Lux Lane, kind of looking west towards 288, and the photo on the right gives you an example of a shared use path, the Stratton Park path, and that is a connector trail that links residential uses up to Stratton Park. So active transportation, providing an alternative method to get to and from a place without a vehicle. So shared use paths, multi-use trails are in the plan. Bike lanes, again, these are focused on bikes. They're on-road, linear, directional travel on each side of the road. They can have buffers. You see the photo on the bottom left is a buffered bike lane, buffered with striping. This is Polo Parkway between Robius and Huguenot. They could also be protected bike lanes that have more of a physical device to further protect the bikers. So bike lanes will be something that's in our plan. You could have something as a cycle track. That's another bike-focused facility. The bottom left picture is in the city of Richmond. Cycle tracks are on-road, linear, again, A to B type of facilities that accommodate two-way traffic, but on one side of the road. So these are examples of facilities that would be included in, or are in, and could be included in an update to the plan. Accomplishments. So one of the main accomplishments with the establishment of the Bikeways and Trails Plan was that it formalized the county's priority and commitment to establishing an alternative transportation network. And because of that, we have referenced that plan and been working off of it. And I pulled some examples of accomplishments through, we implement the plan through public projects and through land development projects. And so pulled a couple of roadway projects that are building significant mileage of bike facilities. So you've got 3 projects that are new alignments, new roadways that are including shared use path, and then we have a widening project. And between these 4 projects, they're building 4 miles of the plan included in these project scopes. Winter Park has been recently finished. That's the inset photo on the bottom of the page. So we do a very good job of making sure we include, if it's on the Bikeways and Trails Plan and we're delivering a public project, then we make sure to include that in our scope. So we're referencing the mission of the plan as we develop projects. Bon Air Phase 2 is another good active transportation project that's called for in the Bikeways and Trails Plan. This trail that you see is wrapping up construction in the next couple of months. It is a shared use path that extends and connects up schools to, you've got the library in that area. It connects into Phase 1, which was a sidewalk project along McCrae Road. You've got a residential node up at Forest Hill. You've got churches along the corridor. There's so many land uses in that area that this shared use path is a component of a broader network called for in the Bikeways and Trails Plan, as well as the Bon Air Special Area Plan. One thing I would note, and why plans are important, is that Bon Air Special Area Plan was adopted in 2015, as was the Bikeways and Trails Plan. It is 2024, and we are now delivering 2 key pieces of this plan. So it's a multi-year process sometimes to get these things over the line, and so you need to have a vision that's going to continue to guide your efforts. So a big success, and again, we are wrapping up this project in the next month or 2. Another way that we accomplish implementation of the Bikeways and Trails Plan is through land development. This is super important. I wanted to pull an example of how we can get this plan and this vision done, and it takes bite-sized chunks out from, we have to do that publicly, but also through land development projects. So this is Geneto Road. East of the screen, north-south, is Otterdale Road, and then the orange outline is a land development case called Dogwood. That's on the western end of this section. So from that orange case to Otterdale Road is about 3 miles. Well, between these 5 cases, we have an ordinance that says land development cases are to, shall provide in accordance to the Bikeways and Trails Plan. So we have 1.7 miles of that 3 miles is committed through land development. And so ideally over time, as that area continues to grow, we can fill in some of those gaps, and then what's left, if that doesn't happen, then that's less for us as a public project to build. So I feel like everyone is doing their part in an example like this. So why update the plan? Well, we have updates to the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan on deck. So our goal is to have the Bikeways and Trails Plan functional and, at those points so they can roll into those future efforts. There's lessons learned, things we need to clean up in using this plan for the 9 years that it's been implemented or adopted. There are alignments that we need to reconsider based on what was in the plan versus what was built. A good example would be Turner Road between 360 and 60. We had the opportunity to implement an on-road bike lane. with VDOT when VDOT came through to pave the road. So we went ahead and did a road diet study and made the decision to implement the bike lane. Well, on the Bikeways and Trails plan, there is an alignment that kind of goes up Turner, but then it turns off-road and connects up into Stonebridge in the plan. So now we have an on-road facility on Turner, and we have this route that kind of goes off-road over to Stonebridge. So now we need to get together with our technical committee and stakeholders and figure out, do we adjust the off-road? Do we get rid of it? Do we keep both? You know, does it serve the purpose to leave them both on? So those are the kinds of cleanup that we need to do with the update. Another thing is just incorporating, you know, again, the Bikeways and Trails plan was adopted in 2015. We've had a number of special area plans, a special focus area plan. These special plans did a more detailed look at a very defined location, and so may have some bike recommendations that are inconsistent with our current plan. So we just need to shore those up. We have some routes that are shown through resource protection areas, environmental features that are probably infeasible, may never happen. So we should probably take a look at revising those around, removing. We also show some routes that would require some significant right-of-way acquisition. So we're going to need to see if those routes warrant some revision. And then, of course, we have some regional and state routes that we need to reflect in the plan that have come online or had some revisions. And most notably is the Fall Line Trail. I know we talk about the Fall Line Trail a lot, but it's a pretty significant bike ped facility. We have 17 miles of this regional trail that will travel through Chesterfield County. Route 1 is about 5 miles of the Fall Line Trail overlaps with Route 1. That's on the northern in that inset, the multicolored piece. That's 5 miles. We have 3 of those 5 miles underway across 6 projects. So that's section. We only have 2 miles left in the northern piece to fund. And then the large section in the blue, that what we refer to as the southern section, that project is $68 million. It's 9.5 miles long. It extends from Petersburg at Patton Park up to Chester at Route 10. And that project's being administered by VDOT, and it's currently out for a bid, and construction anticipated to start in the fall of 25. So that is a huge piece of our 17 miles through the county. We really only have 12.5 miles of the 17 that are funded and underway in some form. So the piece that's not funded is the green piece in the middle. So we have a large chunk that's rolling. So our Bikeways and Trails plan will need to reflect the Fall Line Trail, this regional route. So it is going to be a data-driven process. Of course, we always start with existing conditions. We need to assess what has been built, what's coming online, where the gaps are, and then we'll work to assess needs across the county. Where are the origins and destinations that people want to get to? Do we have an aggregation of local trips at parks, libraries, schools that would be a hub that we should then connect up and then start to form these corridors? So that will be our data-driven piece. And then ultimately, we're going to end up with this updated long-range plan. And of course, we always want to have an eye towards implementation. So we're going to work to prioritize and phase the plan. We're going to come up with some weighting measures by which to prioritize key segments. And then we're really considering developing an action plan, or a constrained plan, if you will, that will cobble together what is the likely funding that we would be able to generate in a 10-year span, and then constrain based on the priorities of the segments. These are the projects in this 10-year window that we're going to focus on. As I noted back with the Bon Air plan, that's been 9 years in the making from the implementation of the plan to the projects. So if we're really going to have 360 miles of network on a map, where do we start? And so we really want to consider an action plan. And so you can see kind of the drivers of the cost right away. I mentioned utilities that are in the way. The Fall Line Trail, just for reference, there's a northern piece that's outside of Chesterfield and the big southern piece. If you average out the cost between that shared use path, it's about $7.2 to $7.5 million a mile. So we'll have this vision plan to work off of, but it would be great to have a focus on where to start. And then you can see I just kind of threw in, we have this table we keep that all the funding sources across the top that we use to deliver projects and which pots of money we use for bike ped. So there's a lot of money out there that we use to deliver bike ped projects. And then our plan, state, regional, and local coordination. So the first bullet is basically an assignments being handed out to county departments. Who's on the hook to implement the plan, maintain an up-to-date inventory. That's a huge part of this. We estimate that we have about 68 miles of bike facilities in the county. We need to confirm and clean up some of that inventory information to confirm that number. So how is that going to work? Which departments are going to work to keep accurate data of our inventory? And then how are we going to maintain these facilities? Our goal as CDOT is always to put it in the right of way and have the state maintain it. But that's going to be something we're definitely going to have to consider as we validate and work on this plan. And then, of course, there's the external stakeholders. You've got regional partners, you've got bike ped advocates. We now have a state trails office. Natalie mentioned making sure we keep our regional trail, our sections of Fall Line Trail in front of them. So there's a lot of coordination that we need to do with some of our external stakeholders. And then lastly, schedule. We're kicking off internally now. We've got our consultant on board and we're ready to roll. We envision having 2 public meetings. Those are the yellow boxes on the screen. Maybe we're shooting for winter of 24 to have our first engagement with the public to solicit input on the current plan, origins, destinations, what they'd like to see. And then the second engagement with the public would be summer of 25, where we show them the updates to the plan and get input there. You see we have a technical committee that we're going to put together those are the blue circles, that will be meeting monthly. And then ultimately we are shooting for end of summer next year to wrap it up. So open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, supervisors, comments? Thank you, Ms. Snyder.
So I know Barb, my friend, is big on buses, so I'm wondering if bus extensions into the county are being looked at in, conjunction with this, like especially along the fall line, along some of the where we could create spurs where people could, connect to buses, using bikes. I just think it's important wherever we can to not just create paths, but also other alternatives for people to get around. I know I know we're getting really progressive here. We've got 2 in 1 year, but I just really like maybe a connector between Midlow and Hull would be an awesome first step to connect those 2 that we've got started. I don't know, and see how that. And again, I think along the fall line, especially for spurs, it might be a really good opportunity to get people moving around.
Yes, to the spurs, Barb has actually just wrapped up a spurs study and has a number of awesome connections already identified. In terms of transit, that will certainly be when we do our needs assessment and origins and destinations, connecting in and how do we align those sorts of trips and again, active transportation, alternate ways of moving around, not just for recreational trips, but so folks can get to work and other things. So, yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Christine.
Thank you for that comment. Just to make sure everybody knows, if you do have access to a bus route in your part of the county, GRTC does have bus racks on the buses, so that if you can get to the bus, you can actually take your bike with you to another location that you can then, so you don't have to pedal the whole way. And it helps if you don't have a car.
That's right.
I know you have a lot on there and a lot going on already, but I just wanted to make sure I know also Barb is on GRTC with me, so she knows where all those spurs should be located.
Assistant Director Barb Smith. Yes. Just for reference.
And I had sent over to Barb, just wanted to make sure that it's not too late to add, not that you need another stretch, but it's not too late to add, because I did have a constituent, Jason Woodby, who had reached out with a plan in Enon that could run really all the way from 295 all the way to 1 with very little road area. There's a Dominion Energy path that could make that happen, that should be relatively lower in cost to be able to put in, and it made a lot of sense to me. So I just wanted to make sure that we get that looked at and hopefully into that bike and trails path plan.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Engel.
you.
Other questions, comments? Dr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious to know, 2015 was when this bikeway plan was put forward.
Yeah.
Out of the 360 miles, I'm going to put you on the spot, I
How many
apologize.
since
How
the
many
plan?
have we accomplished in 9 years?
So I'm looking at Drew. It's accurate to say in the last 5 years, we're confident in that number. That's about 17 miles. Is there another, do you have a number handy?
At the time of the plan, when it was adopted, they said around 5 miles were existing, so not a lot.
At the time, it was 5 miles. How much have we accomplished from then till now?
So then if 68 is the number that we currently have, less 5 would be about 60 plus miles, yeah.
About 60 miles in 10 years. So we're talking about to do 360 miles at this rate is fairly slow, or another 60 years. Did I do my math right? So I'm curious to know, I mean, I think that we are desperately trying to move toward a more modern society, and ironically, modern means where we're able to get around where we're not, less technology, meaning a bicycle or some other ways to get around. So it's kind of an irony there. But there's also another level of this, which is just simply public safety, in that we continue to have these examples of folks that are having difficulty crossing roads. I mean, just pedestrian crossing. We've certainly had to deal with that over the last week with the schools now coming in.
Yeah.
So, a lot of students are driving to school. A lot of them don't want to take the bus. This is another way of getting to school and not having to worry about the driving part of it. So it's a meandering way of saying that what can we do if we make everything a priority, nothing is.
That's right.
And so I don't consider this
That's right.
dessert, okay? I consider this one of those things where it really is a public safety priority.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to comment on that.
Yeah, I think that's where that decision matrix and the weighting based on, what we set as priority with how we want to address, what issues we want to address with these connections. And we can make safety and crossings and school connections a priority as we sort through what pieces that we should be starting with now. We have crashes that will overlay, we'll have schools and, neighborhoods to schools and parks that, we can prioritize connections that are made to those lane uses. And if there happen to be associated crashes or even public input pops to the top that these schools, we can weight different measures as we see fit. So if we'd like to make that a priority, which that's always been how we do it for public projects as well, we try to focus on connections to schools first. And a lot of our projects, CDOT projects, CDOT-led projects are trying to connect up folks to schools. So we can set that as a priority as we work to identify a starting point.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder, yes.
But yet we have to weigh that against sidewalks also, because that's not included in that, and then people are going to be.
Yeah, so the plan will speak to sidewalks, so we'll have, so if we have a base assumption that anything new or retro, that we should have sidewalks along all of our thoroughfare plan roads and internal to neighborhoods. So then we go through this process and we identify where people need to go, and then we would convert that to, if there's a need to have also a bike connection, then that could be converted to a shared use path or a trail. If that makes sense?
Yeah, because you said that sidewalks don't count
It's-
towards the trail, but if you can integrate them into it, then it would
Because it would
count
serve
towards
that
it.
pedestrian need as well. So it's a little, I know, it's a little, sidewalks are focus on PEDs, whereas bike facilities like shared use paths can also accommodate PEDs. So,
I would think there'd be certain areas where it would make more sense to put in a multi-use path to begin with than to put in sidewalks, just because.
yes.
But, yeah.
And I think a lot of the constraints of right of way and getting paths in, that's really probably the bigger challenge. I think we can draw these lines on a map. It's really how do we get it built in? Yeah.
Mr. Carroll,
Mr. Chair.
thank you. Ms. Snyder.
Great comments on the whole process. Yeah, the problem is, we have the second largest road network in the Commonwealth of Virginia, over 4,400 something miles of road.
Yeah.
And we were constantly fighting when you talk about priorities. Now, the good thing is you have seen some of this comes out of the ground because when development is proposed, we're having the developers actually pay for and put in part of what we need. But, and as stated, some of the lines that you look at on here, we actually have no right-of-way on whatsoever, and that costs dollars to do it. The Winnapock plan, the Winnapock Road Trail is a good example. The examples that she showed throughout the county are good examples of where we made headway, and I think we're going to continue to do that whenever we can, absolutely. The unfortunate part is, there were neighborhoods built many years in Chesterfield County that did not include sidewalks. And now we are requiring that accessibility. I give you an example, the new middle school that's being built in my district, the developer of Westerly has agreed to put a shared use path from the neighborhood that goes directly between the houses, directly into the neighborhood, so kids will have access to get in that way on their bikes. And so, again, and I think the board and everybody in the community helps support that, but you'll have an elementary school there and a middle school, and talking with the residents, that kids be able to walk to school, ride a bike to school. As we continue to build neighborhood schools, I think it's going to enhance all of this in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Other questions or comments? All right. Thank you so very much for that. We appreciate it.
Thank
Now,
you.
I do remember in 2015, there was a robust discussion about funding. When we approved the plan, it was like 3 board members supported, 2 did not in 2015. So I do remember that night. It was a long night.